Hello guys, welcome back to another Doctor Who video. This is a special kind of weekend video. I never normally do one, but I thought I'd do one. So if you've never seen my face on your screens before, please hit that big red subscribe button down below and click notifications so I get notifications every single time I upload. So this video is why Series 3 of Doctor Who is so underrated and it gets less credit than what it's meant to. Now personally for me, Series 3 is one of my favourite seasons. Not only do you get a new companion, but David Tennant's performance throughout the entire series is just superb. So without further ado, let's go on with this. So, after the emotional farewell of Rose in the end of Series 2, Series 3 needed to move away from a companion love story, which didn't happen annoyingly, but they should have just done that. But in my opinion, Series 3 is probably one of the best and probably one of the most underrated series of New Who, because David Tennant's performance in this series is amazing. He's more comfortable in the role and it just shows. So for this new series, they had to replace Rose and give the Doctor a brand new companion. So the companion they came up with, the complete opposite of Rose, was Martha Jones, 23-year-old medical student in a hospital. The first episode sees us meet Martha in Smith and Jones, the first premiere episode of the series to be, of the companion to be, and the Smith and Jones is well played. Martha and the Doctor play off each other really well. Martha is level-headed, intelligent, and shows a trait of adventure. So it's no wonder when the whole hospital is transported up to the moon, she tries to take charge. The Doctor takes an instant liking to her because of her logic and intelligent smarts at the time. Because of her intelligent and logic smarts of the situation. So the Doctor takes an instant liking to her. As the episode goes on, you've got the Jadoon, which I thought was an amazing new villain for modern Doctor Who because the Doctor recognises them straight away and they take the entire plot. It doesn't fade away from the characterisation and just introducing new characters, because that's kind of the whole point of the first episode of the new series, to introduce you into the series ahead. So the Jadoon didn't take away from the main plot of introducing Martha as a medical student, but the Doctor and Martha help save the day basically. And Martha's a medical student, so she's a lot more smarter than Rose, and she was characterised better in my opinion personally, because they gave her a lot more to do and it just showed that she was that kind of person that was more intelligent and just a bit more mature than Rose was. So yeah, moving on, and it's no surprise that the Doctor invites her into the TARDIS at the end, but it shows he can't resist. He needs a companion to impress and show off to, so it's kind of like a can't resist kind of thing. But yeah, so also, what I like about Series 3 is Series 3 kept the more darker tones of the show, like Series 1 did. Series 2 was a bit of a mess, you just had multiple different colour tones, so you couldn't really tell if it was darker or not darker. But Series 3 kept every single episode towards that kind of dark theme, most of it taking place at night, which was ideal. So Series 3 definitely took those overlit tones and toned them down considerably well. You notice it in Smith and Jones that there's a dark theme going on, and then there's in the Shakespeare Code and Gridlock, it remains that dark theme throughout the entire rest of the series. Also, what I like that they did is they let Martha's first outing with the Doctor in the past. With Rose, they went into the future first. So I like the fact that they did something completely different with Martha altogether and just let her go into the past first and then the future after and then the past again. So that was kind of like a nice little transition in my opinion, personally in my opinion. And I like the fact that they introduced her as a new normal Martha brought a bit of normality back into Doctor Who, because instead of being that typical companion who thought that they were bigger and better than the Doctor, she didn't think that at all. She did challenge the Doctor on his name, because it was true to her that she had to earn the title Doctor, so she kind of challenged the Doctor on his name, which I thought was a great element, because she was saying something that was true to her, in my opinion. And it was definitely different from Rose, because Rose just got stuck in and Martha didn't. Martha stayed calm, she challenged the Doctor on his name, and told him it had to be earned. Eventually she does call him Doctor, and thanks to Martha's clever intuition, the Doctor works out that Mrs. Finnegan is the alien because his sonic screwdriver burns out halfway through, and thanks to Martha's clever, quick thinking, he works out that Miss Finnegan is actually the alien in the main plot, but she's only like a subplot. She's not really that important because the episode doesn't stray away from the character focus. But yeah, and also thanks to Martha's quick thinking, she resuscitates the Doctor in a heroic and selfless act, meaning she is always going to save the Doctor throughout her very short-lived tenure. But we know at the end of the Smith and Jones, Smith and Jones is ruined a bit by the ending because the Doctor snaps at Martha, saying that she's not there to replace Rose, immediately putting Martha in Rose's shadow. So not good. But the rest of the series, apart from the Shakespeare Code, is all very good. The Shakespeare Code is when the Doctor acts like the biggest douche. I'm putting that in the nicest way, but we all know the Doctor was very kind of manipulative of Martha and just kept dismissing her. So the Shakespeare Code isn't exactly the best episode of the series. I mean, it's not exactly the strongest contender because the Doctor doesn't really take things that well because he's trying to still remember Rose. It's not like ideal for him. So like when he takes Martha into the past, it's just like he's trying to he looks keen to get rid of her. He's like one trip then back home. He's like keen. He looks keen to get rid of her basically because he's missing Rose. So yeah, he basically looks keen in the Shakespeare Code to get rid of her as soon as possible. One trip and then back home. I mean, come on, Doctor, really? The worst part about the second episode of the series is the blatant racism that they portray from Shakespeare. The Doctor didn't even try to stick up for Martha. All he said was it's political correctness has gone mad. It didn't have to be a long speech. He could have just said, hey Shakespeare, you can't really say that to my friend. So yeah, series 3 is let down by the second episode. If they'd changed that pace of that episode and just like given it a bit more of a gist and actually made the Doctor be a bit more nicer to Martha, then that episode would have excelled in points from me. So for that reason, series 2, second episode only gets a 5 out of 10 from me. It's such a weird and strangely paced episode. Anyway, series 3, episode 3, Gridlock, amazing piece of writing. We were already familiar from the set of New Earth in series 1's in series 2's Open a New Earth, but instead of actually having New Earth at the beginning of the series, it was in the third series to try and make up for the Shakespeare Code not being as good. So what I like about this episode is they split the Doctor and Martha up. Brilliant, clever writing to show us what the Doctor and Martha are capable of when they're not together as a pair. And what I like about this episode particularly is the Doctor gets angry at the carjackers for kidnapping Martha, even though he's not really meant to care about her, but he treats her like any other companion and becomes protective of her, which is nice. And then the Doctor takes matter into his own hands, but I think the jumping between two cars makes up for the pacing of the episode. Jumping between Martha and the Doctor's car, it makes up for the pacing of the episode because you kind of see the both of them in two separate, completely different cars. And again, in that episode, they're keeping with the dark theme with the macra and stuff, and Martha being in a different car to the Doctor, that was a really good thing because like David and Acumen's Tennant and Acumen's acting in that worked out really well as kind of character sub points, and the characters we meet along the way is incredible. Also, the 10th Doctor got to cuddle a kitten. That gets all the points from me. But yeah, so like Martha was very intelligent in that episode, and you can see it come through because she's not with the Doctor, but she's knowing what to do in a high-powered situation, and the Doctor feels guilty about putting Martha in danger, so he takes matters into his own hands and jumps from car to car to reach Martha by himself. And he doesn't reach her straight away because then Norvis Haim finds the Doctor and takes him to the Senate. So, you know. And then at the end of that episode, the Doctor talks about, explains to Martha the Time War and the Daleks, which sets up the next story, in my opinion, the Daleks in Manhattan. That story, Daleks in Manhattan, wasn't actually filmed in the USA. Tennant and Acumen never actually left Wales, but a skeleton crew did go out to the USA to film the scenery of it, which is so well edited in. It generally looks like they're in New York, which I think is just incredible. Again, the Doctor has escalated the one trip idea into another trip because he can't face the fact that he doesn't want to be alone, so he's kind of wants a companion to show off to, like I've already said. So like the entire time he escalates the one trip rule to 2 more trips than he should have done, because in reality the Doctor doesn't want to be on his own, but he doesn't want to admit it. So, you know, I'm also glad in Gridlock that the whole underrated storyline, which annoys me, is addressed in Gridlock when Martha is aware that the Doctor has taken her to the same place that he took Rose in the in series 2, and Martha calls him out, saying that she's a rebound for the Doctor, which kind of makes it annoying because I hate the underrated love story. It's dressed in Gridlock, which I think is good, and also again in the Lazarus Experiment, but it's dressed again. It's addressed in Gridlock, which I think is ideal. So yeah. And then the Daleks in Manhattan story is a good thing, is a good idea, because it kind of plays on the fact that the Daleks have to do everything to survive, and Helen Raynaud, who had a bit of experience with classic Who Daleks, really brought the Daleks to life, and you could actually really feel. And the idea of splitting the Doctor and Martha up again in that episode, and the Doctor going after Martha after the Daleks kidnap her, shows how protective he is actually getting of her, and shows that the two of them are actually getting along as a pair. Like in Gridlock, it showed that the two of them were getting along as a pair, and in the Daleks in Manhattan, it just shows that the two are getting along amazing now because of everything the Doctor has done and how many adventures they've had 2 adventures already, and this is their 3rd adventure before the Doctor takes Martha home. Speaking of which, a Lazarus Experiment is next. Gridlock and Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks get 10 out of 10 for Gridlock, very well put, and then 10 out of 10 for both Dalek 2-part, for the Dalek 2-parter, because it's amazingly well written and it just gives you a sense of real scaredness. The Lazarus Experiment is when Doctor takes Martha home and he seems quick to get rid of her. When she turns on the TV, they see a news report and the Doctor quickly leaves, but then he comes back again, not to realise that he was wrong in ditching Martha, but to realise that something's going to go wrong when he hears Lazarus say he's going to change what it means to be human. So the Doctor is obviously naturally intrigued. Then we cut to the titles, and then obviously we cut to Lazarus's office, which kind of sets it up nicely. And then there's the Mr. Saxon name which was mentioned in the first episode, which is kind of like a nice callback for the finale. And Yana was like, Bo was like, you are not alone, which kind of sets up the tone for the finale. Like, what's Mr. Saxon? Who's Mr. Saxon? So it's kind of like sets a nice tone with the finale. But yeah, Lazarus Experiment was pretty well written, I think, in my opinion. The CGI needed a little bit of work. I'm knocking a few points down for the CGI, by the way. But yeah, the Doctor comes back by circumstance, not because he was wrong, basically. So yeah, and then obviously the Doctor and Martha are in formal dress. I like in this series how they kept Martha's family more to the side and did in the Lazarus Experiment one kind of episode where it was dedicated to her family and not just have them throughout the entire series, which I thought was quite cool. That was very clever writing, Russell, I must admit. You kind of kept Martha's family to the side of the series rather than focusing on them a lot. But in the Lazarus Experiment at the end, oh sorry guys, at least it's a Doctor Who themed. Yeah, so like the Doctor meets obviously the Jones family, and that's a good concept because Martha has never mentioned the Doctor before now. Like, it just shows the kind of impact that the Doctor has on people's lives, where he just shows up and there's no mention of him like anywhere. Like, there's literally no mention of him anywhere until he suddenly just shows up in people's lives. And Francine Jones played the concerned mother role really well, and the mysterious man, yes, he's actually credited that in the title. He's actually credited that at the end. Mystery Man. the mystery man is kind of working for Mr. Saxon and explains to Francine that the Doctor is dangerous, naturally making Martha's mother a bit concerned and slapping him near the end. But the episode pacing is super strange because Lazarus just dies and you think, oh wait, that's it. Oh no, it's not. He kills 2 paramedics. But once you get to the cathedral bit, that's when the episode really takes off and Martha uses herself as bait. But also in the episode when the Doctor is trying to deal with Lazarus, Martha uses her initiative to unlock the doors with the sonic screwdriver, but then she leaves her family to join the Doctor, which shows her confidence has changed. She's now used to these adventures with the Doctor, so naturally she's going to go and follow him. Her family have noticed that Martha has changed since stepping into the TARDIS, and it just shows that she's used to these adventures now with the Doctor because she did not leave him. Like when her mum told her to leave him when they come out, and when after Mrs. Jones slaps him, it just shows that Martha wasn't going to leave the Doctor because she's so used to these adventures with the Doctor that she doesn't really want to let the Doctor out of her sight or let him do any situations on his own. And her putting herself up as bait also showed the confidence that she was suppressing with these adventures. She was willing to sacrifice herself if need be, but also she was getting more confident and adventurous as a person because of her short time in the TARDIS with the Doctor. And she even protected her she even told Tish to stand behind her and Martha said she'd even sacrifice herself if need be, which just shows that Martha was like strong-willed after the adventures that she'd had with the Doctor after the previous adventures from the series she'd already had with the Doctor. So it kind of showed when they returned back to modern day that these adventures that Martha was having has made her change into a person. Has made her change into a more kind of ambitious and person that's just willing to sacrifice herself whenever means necessary. Tish asked Martha who the Doctor was, and Martha struggled to answer and just said, he's the Doctor, that was all. And then at the end of the episode, the Doctor's like one more trip, like realising he does need a companion with him all the time to impress and show off to. And Martha politely declines and says she doesn't want to be a passenger anymore just because the Doctor keeps someone that he just takes on for a treat. Eventually, in the end, the Doctor does realise that Martha's not really a passenger. She's more of a frequent flyer, and the Doctor accepts this and accepts her as a full-time companion, again showing Martha's concern for the underrated, for the love story between the two of them. Obviously, again, showing concern for the love story between the two of them, which I thought was really well executed in the end of that episode. The Doctor's like, one more trip, and Martha's like, no, because she doesn't want to she doesn't want to just go with the Doctor as a treat. But eventually the Doctor does realise this and then accepts her as a full-time companion, realising that he does actually need a companion to stay with him in the TARDIS, otherwise he will literally go mental, which we discover at the end of season 4. But I'll do a review on season 4 another time. So yeah, 42 though is a bit of a run-of-the-mill episode, not exactly the best. But the best one is definitely Human Nature, when the Doctor and Martha have to hide in 1913's era in a school, and Martha handles the Doctor scenario really well, and I think it's just amazing that she convinces him to change in the end. So yeah, definitely Martha in Human Nature and Family of Blood was definitely executed in the best way possible. I've watched the episode and I loved every single part of it, especially because the Doctor trusted Martha with everything that was going on, and he actually realised that Martha was probably better than Rose, but his treatment was still quite bad of her, like just dismissing all of her concerns. But then we get to Blink. Now, Blink is an interesting one. Blink is a Doctor-like episode. We had a Doctor-like episode in the last series, Series 2, Love and Monsters, so it only makes right to carry on that fine tradition again. Usually the Doctor-like episodes happen because that way then they don't have to interrupt filming, but Martha and the Doctor return kind of in the middle of the episode in 1969, and then again at the end very briefly, but the Doctor's like in a hurry with Martha so he can't really talk for long, which kind of makes sense because it's a Doctor-like episode. But then you get to Utopia, the part 1 of the series of the 3-parter finale. Captain Jack comes back and meets Martha, and then that's it. Then in Utopia, that kind of sticks with the darker theme of the show, and you get the Master back, which is kind of incredible because you've had hints in that series of Saxon. Like, Saxon's been dropped in throughout the series, and Bo's kind of way of saying that you are not alone is also a good way of executing that at the end, near the end of the series. And then you get to the Sound of Drums and the Last of the Time Lords, and you finally get a conclusion to all of this. The Master is Prime Minister of the UK. The Doctor's not very happy with it, and the Doctor tries to stop him, but then the Doctor gets imprisoned by the Master, and it takes Martha Jones a year to walk the earth in order to save him and Jack. Eventually then Martha leaves the TARDIS, she knew when to walk away. Like, the Doctor, when she enters the TARDIS, the Doctor's like, right, off we go. Like, he just presumes that she's coming with him. Like, he just gets way too excited. And then when he sees the look on her face, he realises that she's staying behind. But in my opinion, Martha was probably one of the only companions in New Who that actually got a pretty decent happy ending. Rose was left on a parallel universe with the clone version of the Doctor. She got a bittersweet ending. Donna had her memories wiped. Amy and Rory went back in time with a weeping angel. Clara got killed by a raven and then travelled the universe with me. Bit of a weird. And Bill got turned into a Cyberman and then ultimately died. But Martha was able to stay in her own time period with her own, keep her memories and stay with the people she loved and have a kick-ass job with UNIT and Torchwood. I mean, Martha, out of all of the companions in the modern series, definitely got the better ending. Because she got to keep all her memories, she got to stay in her time period, she got to work with UNIT and Torchwood, and she also got to be around the people she loved rather than being like Rose, being trapped in a parallel universe. Donna got her memories wiped. Amy and Rory got zapped back in time by a weeping angel. Clara got killed by a raven and died multiple times, but at the end got killed by a raven in the end. Bill got turned into a Cyberman, then killed. So I think out of all of the companions, Martha's ending was definitely kind of, she knew when to walk away from the Doctor. So, you know. So yeah, that's my reason why I think Series 3 is so underrated as a series. Personally, I think it's amazing because like Series 1 and 2 set up Modern Doctor Who, but also Series 3 is probably one of David Tennant's more stronger series because he's more comfortable in the role. You have a new companion for the 10th Doctor, which is just brilliant. You have a new companion for the Doctor who's actually an equal to the Doctor rather than being like one of those companions who... Rose acted like a child when the Doctor when the Doctor was out of her sight. I mean, come on. Martha didn't. When she was out of the Doctor's sight, but the Doctor, like in Gridlock as it's seen, the Doctor obviously can't cope without Martha, so he needs to get back to her. He's like not happy about Martha being out of his line of sight. That's kind of the kind of person the Doctor is. He doesn't let companions out of his line of sight. But when Martha was taken by carjackers, Martha was out of his line of sight, so naturally he was going to fight. Naturally he wanted to get her back. But Martha didn't act like Rose did and cry about it. She was intelligent and persuaded the situation and trusted the Doctor to save her. She knew the Doctor was everything to him. She knew the Doctor was everything to her. And that's what Martha thought the Doctor... Like, Martha knew the Doctor was everything to her. Like, Martha had made a new friend for the first time. And for once, it was nice to see a companion have some normality. Not being destined to save the universe. She did so much for the Doctor, resuscitating him in the hospital. Restarting one of his hearts in the Shakespeare Code. Freezing him in 42. Looking after him in human nature. She did everything she could for him, and it doesn't take the Doctor long to realise in Series 4 how much Martha meant to him. because in series 4 when he sees Donna and explains to Donna that he had a friend called Martha and that she was brilliant, it takes the Doctor a whole entire series to realise that he treated her really badly and that he misses her. I mean, surely he would have realised that at the end of series 3 rather than the start of series 4 he should have realised. But I think that kind of concept of Martha leaving and the Doctor realising what he's done to make her leave is a good concept in the entire series, because the Doctor reflects that he's really treated her badly. But in series 4 it was nice to step away from that storyline that Rose and Martha had. It was a bit weird. Anyway, that's why I think series 3 is so good as a series personally, because it kept to the darker tones of the show. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, because I love doing videos like these, and I watched someone else do it and I agreed with everything he said and I wanted to address each episode. By the way, series 3 gets like a big 9 out of 10 for me. I'm knocking it down a point because of the Shakespeare Code, but apart from that, the rest of the series is full on fleek. And the merch came out in series 3, which is kind of good, because series 1 was kind of setting up for Doctor Who, then series 2 was setting up almost for the cinematic, and series 3 was getting ready for the awards thing. So I think series 3, in my opinion, is probably the most better series of the entire modern Who. It's definitely one of my favourites, and every time I rewatch Doctor Who, I always watch series 3, because I'm not a massive fan of series 2 or series 1. I don't know why. I just don't think they're personally very good series. Let me guys know what you think, but I think the whole companion love story with Rose just doesn't do it for me, and I think that's a bit stupid. I don't know. I didn't really like Rose and the 10th Doctor having a romantic interest. Martha and the Doctor, though, I thought perfect pairing. The perfect pairing. I liked though that Jack came back and met Martha and became friends with her, and they walk hand in hand after leaving the TARDIS, so I think that's kind of cool. And I like the fact that Martha went on to marry Mickey Smith. Again, another companion the Doctor didn't treat quite poorly, but yeah. I'll see you guys soon with another video, probably again Tuesday, because I'm uploading this tonight, so bye.